Hello there. I recently saw this animation on Warner Bros. Spain's Instagram profile. So, in this tutorial of After Effects, I'll explain how to make it. Not only will we learn how to make these camera animations, but we'll also create a fully customizable template so we can use this animation in multiple projects. Plus, at the end of the tutorial, we'll see how to go from a flat design to this one with a professional finish.
Get down here! Hooray! I need your help!
By the way, if you want to support the channel, in addition to your likes, you can also do it from my Patreon page. There, I share with you all the projects I use in the tutorials, so you can keep practicing and learning. I leave the link in the description if you want to take a look. The first thing I'm going to do is import all the files. To keep them organized, I'm going to open the order script, which our friend Zavat shared with us. With a simple click, it organizes everything into folders: video file, Photoshop file, compositions, and images. I'll leave the link in the description in case you want to download it for free. By the way, if you like documentary-style editing, my course is now available. But it's not just a course in which I show you how to animate a sequence in After Effects and that's it. But I show you the entire procedure that I followed to create this animation. From the initial idea to the final render, going through each and every phase of the creative process. I'll leave the link in the description in case you want to take a look. Now I'm going to bring in these 3 layers that will serve as references. And from this Photoshop file, I'm going to create a composition. This will be the front cover of the folder. On top of that, I'm going to add this one called Reference 1. And using it, I'll design the composition. This one will be called Video, and it will be 1000 by 1200 pixels, with 30 frames and 20 seconds left. Right-click, New, Solid, and this is going to be called Frame, the color white. And by double-clicking on the rectangle tool, we'll create a mask. Here, we set the expansion to -50. Okay, now we need to set this mask to subtract mode. And we'll move these 2 points up a little. I'm going to activate the background to make it more visible, more or less around there. Then, with the text tool, everyone can type whatever they want. With Control-Alt and the Home key, we center the anchor point, and with Control-Home, we center the text in view. And I'm also going to put this font, the one called Helvetica. And I'm also going to make it a little bigger. That's fine. With a right-click, I'm going to create another solid. This one will simply hide the empty background. We'll go back to the front folder composition, and here we'll bring in the video composition. We'll position it where the reference 1 is. The first thing we're going to do is select the Pan Behind tool and set the anchor point to the left corner. If we hold down the Control key, it automatically sticks. Now, let's adjust the position. With the W key, we can rotate the composition, and with the S key, we adjust the scale. Okay, I think it's perfect there. Another composition. This one will be called Placeholder 1. 1300 by 1000 pixels. Let's make it somewhat rectangular. Everything else stays as is. Right-click New Solid, also called Frame. White and double-click the rectangle tool to create a mask again. Set the expansion to at least 50, and just like before, set it to subtract mode. I'm going to create another solid to serve as a background. With the text tool, I'm going to type placeholder 1. Well, here everyone can add whatever image from the video they like best. I'm explaining how to create the template, but later everyone can customize it however they like. I'm going to copy this text with Ctrl-C and go back to the front folder composition. And we're going to put this one here. Later, we'll choose the layer order. We're also going to put the anchor point here. Hold down the Control key, and it will automatically stick there. We'll place this composition there. Press S and adjust the scale. Okay, that's fine. Another composition. This one will be called Placeholder 2. And we'll make it square, 1000 by 1000 pixels, leaving everything else as is. Right-click, New, Solid, name it Frame, and color it white. Again, double-click the rectangle tool, expand it to at least 50, and set the mode to subtract. This solid is so the empty background isn't visible. As we copied the text before, now with Ctrl-V, I'll paste it here. This will be called Placeholder 2. Okay, perfect. We go back to the front folder composition and place it at the top. The anchor point is at this corner. Now all that's left is to adjust the composition there, more or less. With the W key, we can rotate it, okay? More or less around there. S key and adjust the scale a little. I think it's about right. Another composition. This one will be called Article 1 and will be 2000 by 2000 pixels. Everything else stays as is. In this composition, I'm going to add a PNG that I have here, called Mask 3. I need to scale it down quite a bit. I'm going to set it to 50. On this layer, I'm going to add the paper texture. I'm also going to scale it down, since it was too large. Now, I have to make this paper texture an alpha matte for this layer. If the track mattes don't appear, use F4 to unfold them, and then use Pick Whip to parent it to this one. Okay, perfect. In this composition, we're going to design the first newspaper article. Here, I'm going to write First Article. Center it a little larger, and place it at the top. In any case, we can change all of this whenever we want. Now, with the pen tool, let's create a stroke like this. We'll remove the fill and add a black stroke with a thickness of 12 pixels enough. I'll move it up a little. Okay, I think that's perfect. Let's create another composition. This one will be called Photo Item 1. 1000 by 1000 pixels. Everything else stays as is. Right-click New Solid. This one will simply be there so the background doesn't look empty. And with Ctrl-V, I'll paste the text again. This one will be called Placeholder 1. With Ctrl-Alt and the Home key to center the anchor point, and with Ctrl-Home to center it in view. Sorry, it won't be called Placeholder 1. It'll be called Photo Article 1. Now, yes. Now we come to the article composition, and here we'll add the photo. I'm going to move it a little to the right so it sticks out slightly here. And if necessary, we'll adjust each element a little. This one a little bit down. Okay, that's fine. We also have to alpha matte the mask layer for this composition. The path is the same. We select it, and so it can't be seen here. We also have to alpha matte it. There it is. Now I'm going to go to the Compositions folder, and I'm going to copy this fill text here with Ctrl-C. And I'm going to go to Article 1. With the text tool, I'm going to create a shape like this. And with Ctrl-V, I'm going to paste the text. We need to make some adjustments, so I'll select them, and here I'm going to increase the size a little. And also the line spacing a little. Okay, I think this might work. We're going to right justify this text. If the paragraph options don't appear, you have to go to Window and select Paragraph. Okay, so, as I said, it's now left justified. We'll right justify it. And maybe I'll increase the line spacing a little more. That's fine for me. We're also going to make this text layer an alpha matte of the mask. With Ctrl+D, we duplicate it, and we're going to place this copy down here. Now we're going to left justify this text. Anyway, this text won't even be legible in the animation, but it's how we've created this composition that looks like a torn newspaper article. We'll go back to Front Folder and bring in the article. We'll place it at the top and change the anchor point. We'll select the Pan Behind tool again and move the anchor point to around here. Now we press the V key to return to the Selection tool. We'll place this composition where we have the guide layer. More or less there. It doesn't have to be perfect. It could be a little more to the right, up, or down. With the W key, we rotate the composition a little. Now with the S key, we adjust the scale. Maybe I'll rotate it a little more. Okay, I think it's perfect there. I'm going to move this article to the bottom, but as I said before, we can organize the layers at any time. Another composition, this one will be called Article 2. Here we're going to add another PNG that we have in the folder called Mask 2. Notice that this layer has dimensions of 5000 by 5000. So we'll go to Composition, Adjustments, and set the same dimensions. 5000 by 5000 pixels. Everything else will stay as is. Okay, we'll put the paper texture back in. And with Pick Whip, we'll make this layer an alpha matte. Okay, here, I'm going to type second text here. The font will be Helvetica. With Control-Alt and the Home key, we center the anchor point, and with Control-Home, we center the text in view. I'm going to place it more or less around this side. With the Pen tool, we're going to create a path like this, with a thickness of 12 pixels in black. If we want, we can move it up or down a little. I'm going to leave it more or less there. Now let's go back to the composition of the text I have here as a fill. With Control-C, I copy it, and here, with the Type tool, I create a shape like this. Control-V and paste the text. We need to increase the size and line spacing a little. Okay, I think it looks pretty good there. I'm going to right justify this paragraph, and I'm also going to activate the safety margins for reference. I'm going to place it more or less there. And we need to make it an alpha matte of the mask layer. There it is. With Control-D, we duplicate it, and we're going to place this copy on the other side. But we're going to justify it to the left. This path layer, so it can't be seen from this side, we also need to make it an alpha matte of the mask. Okay, now that's perfect. We're going to go to the front folder composition, and this one from Article 2 that we just created, we put it up here. We adjust the scale, which is very large, around there, and move it down. Okay, I think it's perfect there. This article should stay above these two placeholders. Again, with the text tool, let's write the sentence below. Here I'll write tagline here, for example. But as I said before, everyone should write what best suits their project. We'll center it on the anchor point and also center it in view. I'll move this one down. I'll also change the font. And now I'll deactivate the reference layer to see how it looks. Okay, this looks great. I'm going to put the text layer below everything else, so it's behind the article. Okay, let's continue. I'll activate the reference layer again. Now in the PNG folder, there's a file called clip. I'll put it on top here, and I'll scale it since it's very large. Around that size. Look here where we have the reference file. We have to place this one on that side. Rotate it with the W key. Okay, I think it should be there. A little more to the right. Perfect. Now I'll deactivate this layer, and with the clip selected, I'll go to the Pen tool and create a mask like this. Now, we have to set this mask to subtract mode. And this way it gives the impression that this clip is anchored to the lid and is holding this Polaroid photograph. With Control-D, we duplicate it and move it to the right. I'm going to activate this layer for a moment to see it better. With the W key, we rotate it roughly and place it in that position. As I said, it doesn't need to be exact. It's just a layer that serves as a guide. Now in this clip, we just have to adjust the mask. This point here, and this other one there. Okay, this is looking great. Now I'm going to bring in this one called tape, which is like adhesive tape. With the rectangle tool, I'm going to make a mask like this so I only have the top part. With the S key, we lower the scale a little. And we're going to place it here on this side. Maybe I'll lower the scale a little more. Okay, that's where I like it. And we're going to set the opacity to 90, so you can see a bit of what's behind it. With Control D, we duplicate it, and we're going to place this copy on top of the article. If we want, we can rotate it a little so it's not completely straight. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, and I'm also going to lower the scale a little more. I like it there. And maybe I'll lower this one a little more too. I'm going to set it the same as the one above, at 46. With Control D, we make another copy. And we're going to place it in this part here. With the W key, we rotate it. Now, we're going to add the drop shadow effect to this video composition. We're going to increase the distance a little, for example to 15, or maybe a little less. I'm going to set it to 10, and the smoothing also to 10. And I'm going to copy this effect with Control C. And I'm going to paste it to the clips with Control V. And also to all the compositions. Select them and with Control V, paste the shadow effect. And that's how we have the front cover assembled. Now, before continuing, let's organize the project a bit. Here in the Compositions folder, I'm going to create another one called Placeholders. And I'm going to put these two in that folder. I'll select it again and create another one called Articles. And within this one called Articles, we're going to create another one for the article photos. Here we have one, and then we'll create the following ones. This composition called Front Folder, which is the one generated by default, is also going to be put in this folder. Within the pre-compositions, I'm going to create another subfolder called Videos. And we'll put this one in there. This way, we'll have the template perfectly organized so we can customize it whenever we want, with just a few clicks. As I said at the beginning, this will be the front cover, but later, when the folder opens, you'll see the inside cover. Let's go here to the compositions, and with this front folder, duplicate it with Control D and rename it to Front Folder In. Go to this composition and select all the layers. We'll delete all except the Photoshop file and the two clips. Delete all the others. Now, we'll parent these two clips to this layer, and with it selected, right-click, transform, and flip horizontal. And this is what the cover of the folder would look like once opened. Now I'm going to add this one called reference 2, which will help me put together this composition. The first thing I'm going to do is create this newspaper article. So I'm going to go here to the images, PNGs, and it's this one called mask. But first, I'm going to create the composition, and this one will be called Article 3. 2000 pixels by 2000 pixels. And everything else will stay as is. We're going to put this Article 3 composition in its folder. Perfect. We've said it was this one called mask. We'll put it here. And on top of it, we'll add the paper texture. We'll scale it a bit since it's very large, just like we did before, and make it an alpha matte for this layer. Here, I'm going to type third text here. I want to center justify this text. Control-Alt and the Home key to center the anchor point, and Control-Home to center it in view. I'm going to put it there more or less. Okay, that's fine. With the pen tool, I'm going to draw a stroke like this again. A little downward. Before continuing, I'm going to create another composition, and this one will be called Photo Article 2. 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels. Everything else stays as is. Right-click, New, Solid. This will help hide the empty background. Here I'm going to type Photo Item 2. Okay, perfect. We're going back to this composition and we'll place this photo layer up here and move it a little to the right. Maybe I'll make it a little bigger to cover this whole area. Okay, I think it's perfect. We'll also make this composition an alpha matte of the mask. And we'll go back to the text layer. With Control-C, we'll copy it. And here in Item 3, we'll make a shape like this. And now, Control-V. Okay, I'm going to make some adjustments to this text. The size and the line spacing. That's where I like it. I'm going to right justify it. There you go. We also have to make this text layer an alpha matte of the mask. And let's not forget that we also have to make the path an alpha matte. Okay, that's perfect. We're going to go to the front folder in Composition, and we're going to put this one from Article 3 on top here. We're going to put the anchor point on this side. We're going to select the Pan Behind tool and place it there. And using the guide layer to help us, we're going to place it on that side. Press W and select the rotation tool. Now we're going to leave it there. Press S and adjust the scale as well. Okay, let's continue. I'm going to go in this order. Polaroid 3, 4, and this one hidden here, 5. For this one, I'm going to need the rectangular one, so I'm going to come to the placeholders folder. And I think it's this one. With Control-D, we duplicate it, put it on top here, and we have to repeat the same process again. Hold down the Control key and put the anchor point there. Now we're going to adjust this composition there. W to rotate and S to scale. Okay, that's perfect. For this Polaroid photo, I'm going to need the square one. I think it's placeholder 2. Control D, and we'll put this one over here. This whole process might seem a bit tedious or confusing because there are a lot of compositions. But in the end, you'll see that we'll have a fully customizable template with a super professional look. Press S and adjust the scale as well. I'm going to duplicate it again for photo 5, Control D, and I'm going to put this one down here. We'll adjust the scale a little and rotate it as well. To differentiate these compositions, we can change the color of the solids. Oh, by the way, we can also change the name of the placeholder. This one will be placeholder 3. This one here will be called placeholder 4. And this one that's hidden will be placeholder 5. This way, we always have an organized template. Okay, let's continue. Another video is supposed to appear here. So I'm going to duplicate this composition. Control D, and I'll put it up here. The anchor point is at this vertex. And I'm going to position it more or less around there. Press W to rotate and S to scale. We'll duplicate this composition of Article 2 with Control D and place it here. Later, we can choose the order of the layers. For now, it's going to stay there. We'll adjust the scale, which is very large, and position it between these layers here. I think I'll place this one from the article above the video layer. Okay, I like it there. And this one from placeholder 4, I'll put it at the very top. There it is. Here we're going to put another text. We'll choose a font, scale it a little, and now all that's left is to position it. I'll leave it more or less around there and also rotate it a bit. I'll deactivate the reference layer to see how it looks. Okay, so it looks great there. We need to put these 2 clip layers at the very top. What else? Okay, if we have a banner here, without any layers selected, we'll go to the rectangle tool and create a shape like this, roughly around this point. We'll fill it with white and remove the stroke. With Ctrl-Alt and the Home key, we center the anchor point. This layer will be called Banner. We'll go to the rectangle options and increase the roundness a little so the edges look rounded. Now, with the text tool, we'll type a sentence. This text needs to be center justified. Hold Ctrl-Alt and the Home key to center the anchor point. Now, to adjust this text to the center of the shape, hold down the Control key. Notice, if you hover over here, it stays perfectly aligned. I'm going to make it a little bigger. That's fine. We can now deactivate this reference layer. And here we see how the result turned out, which really looks really cool. I'm going to make this article composition a little bigger, right there, and a little bit down. Go to the From Folder composition and copy this layer called Tape, which is the adhesive tape. Copy it with Ctrl-C and paste it with Ctrl-V. We're going to place them randomly. Maybe I'll put one here, scale it down, duplicate it with Ctrl-D, and place it somewhere else. Here, you can take your time designing the scene to your liking. Another copy, and I'm going to put this one at the top here. That's where I like it. And we have to put this clip at the very top. Okay, let's put both. There it is. Now it looks perfect. We go to the From Folder composition, and with Ctrl-C, we copy this drop shadow effect. And in this composition, we're going to paste it to the banner with Ctrl-V. Notice the cool shadow there. And to all these compositions as well, we select them, and with Ctrl-V, we paste the drop shadow effect. Okay, so now we have the front cover and the inside cover. All we need to do is the back cover of the folder. We go here to the Photoshop files, and from this one called Back Folder, we're going to create a composition. Okay, and we're going to put this one in its folder. Now the reference, this one called 3, we're going to put it at the top here. And now we're going to design this scene. Let's start in order. Polaroid 6, 7, and 8. And then the items. So I go to Play Holders, and I want one that's rectangular. Okay, this one here, 1 is fine. With Ctrl-D, we duplicate it and go to this composition. And here in the settings, we'll make it 1000 by 1300. We'll leave everything else as is. And we'll rotate the frame and the solid 90 degrees. Perfect. Now, placeholder 6 can be placed here on top. We have to repeat the same process as before. Pan behind tool, hold down the Control key, and adjust the anchor point. Now, we're going to position this composition there. Press W to rotate and S to scale. That's fine. Here, we're going to place a square placeholder. This number 5 will do. Press Ctrl-D and place it on top here. the anchor point here. And now we position it. Notice that having a guide layer like this one as a reference makes it very easy to position all the elements. Press W to rotate, and well, here I'll maybe increase the scale a bit. Okay, I'll leave it at 110. This composition is going to be in the back. Now we're going to place placeholder 8, which is also square, so this one will do. The anchor point is at a vertex. We position it there. Press W to rotate. We're not going to touch the scale here or anything. I'll leave it like this. Okay, more stuff. Here we have to add 2 articles. Let's add this one here first. So we go here to the folder. And this one you see horizontally. With Control D, we duplicate it and add it here. We have to scale it because it's too big. Okay, I think it's perfect there. I'm going to go into the layout to change the title. Here, I'm going to put, for example, final text here. This text has to be center justified. Control-Alt and the Home key to center the anchor point, and Control-Home to center it in view. Now we move it up a little. By the way, I think I also had to do this with this other article. This text is center justified. Likewise, we center the anchor point and center it in view. I don't know if there were any others like this horizontally. Okay, yes, there's number 4. We select the text and center justify it. Okay, now it's perfect. We go back to the back folder layout, and we're going to rename these. This one here is placeholder 6. This one here is placeholder 7. And this one up here is placeholder 8. I might also change the solid color for this one. Although this composition, this one here, I think I'll put it on top. You can start playing around with the organization of the compositions here. We'll need to figure out what to do with this last article here. So let's go to its article folder. I think it's this one, number 1. With Control D, we duplicate it and put it on top. We change the anchor point here and we'll position it there. W to rotate and S to adjust the scale. Maybe I'll rotate it a little bit more around there and make it a little bigger. Okay, I'm going to move this article to the back, and now, within this article, this composition called Photo Article 1, we're going to right-click and reveal it in the project, which is right here. With Control D, we duplicate it, and now, holding down the Alt key, we replace it with this one. We go to the layout, and this will be Photo Item 2. Great. Let's see, let's take a look at the others. Okay, this one, let's see. Photo item 1. This other item, okay, this one is 2. So this one here, from the back folder, this item, the photo is 3. Sorry if you're getting confused with this, but since there are so many compositions in this template, it's easy to get confused. Anyway, if you have any questions or get stuck at any step, leave a comment and we'll sort it out. We can close all of these now if we want. We'll be left with just the 3 folder covers. We come here to the first one and copy this clip with Ctrl-C, and here, in this last one, paste it with Ctrl-V. Since we have our reference layer here, it's very easy to position it. Well, we'll leave it there, and the mask is perfect. We'll also copy the adhesive tape, Ctrl-C, and in this composition, Ctrl-V. This other one over here, and adjust the scale a bit. Ctrl-D to duplicate, and this one up here. Okay, well, I think it looks perfect there. Down here, we also have a banner. Without having any layers selected, we'll go to the rectangle tool, and I'll stick with just this layer to see it better. We'll make a shape like this called banner. In the rectangle options, we'll increase the roundness a bit. Ctrl-Alt and Home key to center the anchor point. Now with the text tool, I'll type Special Access. We center the anchor point again, and with the Control key pressed, we'll adjust it here to the center of the shape. It'll stay perfectly glued there. Make it a little bigger, and that's it. Well, I think all the elements are there. We go to this composition and copy the drop shadow effect again, Ctrl-C, and in this back holder, we'll paste it to all the compositions with Ctrl-V. Okay, perfect. We also select this banner layer and paste the effect, Ctrl-V. This composition that's hanging over here, which is the photo of Article 2, we put it in its folder to keep everything organized. Now, we have the design for the 3 covers: the front cover, the inside cover, and the back cover. Now we can start with the animation. We'll go to Composition and create a layer called Camera Sequence. 1920 by 1080 pixels, with 30 frames and 20 seconds to spare. Here I'll add a wood texture I have here. Using the S key, I'll scale it down to 40%. We'll convert this layer to 3D. If the cube icon doesn't appear, use F4 to expand it. On top of it, we'll add the composition called front folder, which is the folder's entry cover. We'll convert it to 3D and set the scale to 20%. Now, we'll set the anchor point to the left side of this composition so that when the folder opens, it rotates from there. Select the Pan Behind tool and move the X-axis to the left. We can zoom in as much as possible and place the axis around there. It doesn't have to be exactly on the last pixel. As long as it's on the previous one, it's enough. I'm going to lower the opacity of this texture a bit to better see what's happening. I'll return it to 100 later. Right-click and create a 50mm camera with a node. And being here at the beginning of the timeline, we are going to display the position. With the Shift key pressed and the R key, we also display the rotation and mark a keyframe in position and Z rotation. I'm going to set the rotation to 25. I'll leave the position as is. Now in the second 705, I'm going to zoom in a bit. I'll set the Z value to -2000 and lower the rotation a bit. Leaving it at 5 or 6 degrees is enough. Smooth these two keyframes with F9 and leave them as is. This way, we have continuous camera movement. Here, I want to zoom in quickly. But first, I'm going to do something so the wood grain isn't parallel to the top of the folder. I'm going to rotate this layer a little and set it to 15 degrees. Now, right-click, New, Null Object. We'll also convert it to 3D and parent the camera to it. At 125, we display the position and rotation and mark a keyframe in position and Z rotation. Not for rotation at the moment, just position. Moving forward to 3 seconds, I'm going to zoom in quite a bit here. I'll set the Z value to 1040, the X value to 890, and the Y value to move it down a bit. The idea is for this first video, which will be displayed in this placeholder, to be roughly centered. So I'll zoom down a bit and set it to 420. These two keyframes are smoothed with F9. Just like I always do, to prevent the camera from freezing suddenly when it reaches this keyframe, I'll do the following. I'll hover over it, select it, and with the Alt key and the arrow key on the keyboard, I'll move it 5 frames to the right. Without moving the head anymore, I set a new keyframe. I'll set this one at 320. We'll smooth it again and give the curve a little bit of shape. If we hold down the Alt key and scroll, we can zoom in or out. Here we double-click, lock the continuous option, and set the influence to 70%. We move the handle up a little. This is the same. Double-click, set the influence to 70%. This way, instead of the camera stopping at this point, it will continue moving, but very slowly. This way, we achieve smooth and fluid camera movements. We continue. We now advance to 620. And here, in this same null, we mark a keyframe in position, and now in Z rotation. From 620, we move to second 805. Now, we'll set all these values to their default values. 960, 540, and set Z to 0. And the rotation, negative 15 degrees. We select them all and smooth them with F9. Okay, now we need to give the curve a little bit of shape. Select these two, right-click, keyframe velocity, and set the influence to 70%. These two rotation keys are the same. Right-click, keyframe velocity, and set them both to 70%. We should have a curve like this. Standing here on the last keyframe, we'll duplicate the null, press U, and delete all of these. We'll parent the previous null to the new one. We'll position ourselves more or less here. Between these, at 7:12 seconds is fine. We mark a keyframe in position and in Z rotation. Now we advance to 9:20 seconds, or a little further, to 9:25. Here we'll zoom in again. In Z, we set it to negative 700. In X, we move it to the right and set it to 770. And we'll leave the Y-axis as is. But we'll increase the rotation value, setting it to negative 25 degrees. Just like before, we smooth all these keyframes with F9, and we also set the influence to 70%. Right-click, keyframe velocity, and here we set both to 70%. Perfect. Right here, we'll open the folder lid. So we'll focus on these keyframes. We select the composition, press the R key, and select one in Y rotation. Below these, we'll set a value of 180 degrees. We'll also soften these two and set the influence to 70%. With Ctrl A, we select all the layers, press the U key twice, and we'll be left with just the keyframes. This way, our timeline looks much cleaner. Now, at this point, when the folder opens, you should see the inner cover. We'll position ourselves here on these keyframes and place front folder in below. We'll also convert it to 3D and set the scale to 20%. But notice that it looks a little strange. So we select the composition, right-click, go to Transform, and flip it horizontally. Now everything looks flipped, but when the folder opens, it should look fine. We'll position ourselves here, above these keyframes, just as the cover animation starts. And with the pick whip, we parent it to the front cover. Well, here you can still see the front cover, but flipped, and that's not exactly what we want. However, we'll fix this very easily. Let's activate two views to see it better. We'll position ourselves here at the first keyframe of the cover animation. Look, this happens because they're both in the same position on the Z-axis, that is, at the same depth. So, let's do the following. Remove the parent link from this front folder and now on the front cover, unfold the position and modify the Z-axis. I'm going to zoom in a lot so it looks good. As I said, they're now both at the same depth in Z. But if we set the front cover to -1, look, it's now a little bit forward. Now, if we parent this composition to the front cover, it should look perfect. Let's check it. There it is. Here you can see the front cover, and when rotated, the inside is perfectly visible, which is exactly what we want. Now we just need to add the back cover. We select it and place it underneath. We convert it to 3D, and we also set the scale to 20%. There you go. We have all three. Now we need to zoom in again here on the second video. And for that, we're going to use the same null. We select it and go to 920 right there. We mark a keyframe in position and another in Z rotation. From 920, we go to 1110. Here, we're going to zoom in quite a bit. In Z, we set it to 1820. In X, we move it a little to the right, with a value of -220. And in Y, we move it down. As I said before, the idea is for the second video, which will be seen here on this Polaroid, to be centered. In Y, we set it to -245, and now we set the rotation to 12 degrees. We smooth all these keyframes with F9. Just like before, to prevent the animation from stopping abruptly when reaching these keyframes, we'll do the following. Select them and move them 10 frames to the right. We can do this by holding down the Alt key and pressing the arrow keys. And without moving the head from there, we mark two new ones. Now we'll place these two below the 1410 mark. We select them again and smooth them. If we want to differentiate them from the others, since it's the last movement, we can color them yellow. Well, it doesn't look very good right now. The animation is a bit erratic, so we have to go into the graphics editor to shape the curve. We first select the keyframes of the position. Double-click, lock the continuous box, and set the influence to 90%. For this one here, set the influence to 45%. Now we move this handle up so that the curve is seen with this progressive descent. Let's do the same with the rotation elements. Double-click, activate the continuous box, set the influence to 90%, and this one here to 45%. Move the handle up a little as well. I think this will look perfect. This already looks special, but we need to expand the pixels on the texture to fill in all the empty spaces. Add the CC Repetail effect and increase all these values a little. Let's set, for example, 2000 for each one. And here, change the repeat to unfold. Oh, and don't forget to set the opacity back to 100% for this layer. Now everything looks very flat, but when we do the color correction, the result will be much more professional. You'll see the difference between how it looks now and how it will look after the color correction. I'm going to start with this texture. I'm going to add the hue and saturation effect. And activate the colorization option. In this value, I'm going to look for brown tones. I think that might be the way to go. I'm setting the saturation to 50 and lowering the lightness a bit to make it look darker. I'm going to set it to -75. Right-click, create an adjustment layer, name it Wiggle, and apply the transform effect. Hold down the Alt key and click on the position clock and type Wiggle in parentheses 1.5. This creates a handheld camera effect. I deactivate it for a moment to make it more visible. This movement gives the animation much more dynamism. I reactivate the camera, right-click again, New, and then select an adjustment layer. I'll call this one Vignette, and I'll add that effect. I'll set the angle of view to 50 to make it look darker, and I'll leave it that way. In the Images folder, I have a texture called Grunge. I'll place it below, press the S key, and scale it to 20%. To fill in the empty spaces, I also apply the CC Repetail effect. And here I set a value of 2000 for each layer. From Repetail, we change to Unfold and set the opacity of this texture to 20%. We set the blending mode to Multiply. And although it's not visible to the naked eye, if you zoom in on this photo, you can see the texture, and it really gives it a very attractive look. On another adjustment layer, I'm going to use a plugin called Magic Bullet Looks, one of the best plugins for color correction in After Effects. In the Looks tab, we have all these presets already in place, and we can try out which one we like best. Look at the number of them. I like this one. Well, the truth is that they are very cool. I'm going to choose one from Blockbuster, called Classic Tension. In addition to the effects already included in the preset, I'm going to add others. For example, this one called Optical Diffusion, which adds a bit of brightness. But here, I'm lowering the intensity a bit, more or less around that. I'm also going to add this one called Chromatic Aberration, and I'll set the value between 0.7 and 0.8. That's fine. When we're happy with the look, we'll validate it, and that's it. I create another adjustment layer called Curves. In the RGB channel, I'll add a little light, but not too much, so as not to burn the image. More or less around that. And in the blue channel, I'll slightly increase the blue tones in the shadows. The best way to understand how each effect works is to exaggerate it. I'll leave it more or less around that. In the video folder, I have some particles that I'm going to add up here, and I'll set the blending mode to Add. Another thing we can do is create a flicker effect on the folder's tops. We'll add the effect called Exposure. Here on the position clock, we click with the Alt key pressed. And in the dialog box, type Wiggle with 5.02 in the parentheses. So the flicker doesn't look too exaggerated, but rather a very subtle effect. Copy the effect and paste it onto the other two folder headers. Finally, just activate Motion Blur for these 4 layers, and that's it.